Oh, and here we are. We're live. Hey, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. I just want to remind you, don't believe anything I say. And I want to tell you that I am your griot, that's a storyteller, Sensei Al Bob. And welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. So, when the old crone told me, grow a pair of ovaries, what she was talking about was that male is not the most important of the species, right? And that when it comes to genitalia, the most important thing is the ovary, because there are a lot of species out there, and humans are starting to do it themselves, where the female reproduces without a guy. And within our social construct, men have become, between misogyny and irresponsibility, men have really. So, let's see here. So I've been talking or thinking and writing about what Plato said. Plato said, if we do not explore our life, it is not a life worth living. And so as we look out upon the media playground, we kind of see how it's not worth, no one's stepping up, or not no one. Not many folk are stepping up, right? And those men who are stepping up, step up because they had a mother or a grandmother or a female in their life who showed them what responsibility was. Not many have male role models, right? And what is it, don't want to be a role model. What you want to be is an example. And there's a real difference, right? Role model fits into the poster picture, And an example is somebody who shows what needs to be done through their own life's example, right? Here I am. There you go. Here am. Yep. Seems the chat works. There's none of you there. We've been running for 3 minutes, right? So I'm just going to read. Here's my hairy chest. And here's my ovary hat,
So if you're wondering after you get to wood, he's not on the wood.
Yep, there he is. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to read some more of what I'm writing on. And what I'm writing on is the unexplored life is a life not worth living, right? Piety, the prophetic fire. The unexplored life is a life not worth living, right? So that's what kind of I'm looking at, right? If we do not explore our life, it's not worth a life worth living. Plato. We live in a moment of critical opportunity. We have been told we live in a world of scarcity. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, and you better get yours before some other liberal skinhead black bad dude doggy dog gets it before you. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, that isn't how things roll, Basically, we live in a universe, right? And the universe is conscious. And that consciousness is love's co-creation. And that's the only thing that exists. The physicists have kind of realized that there's this stuff all around us called dark matter. And people like Ben Franklin, Nikola Tesla, Morey, Verity all called it the ether, right? And so science has realized that our human inability to understand the black matter is because we don't have any real senses that can do it. You know, we have sight, we smell, taste, hear, feel, but that is only covered by about 4% of our cerebral cortex's ability to process, right? The other 96% is unused, right? Because we're not stepping up. We have to go outside of our limitations of our cultural dynamic, right? You know, where prestigious priests and scholastics have been incarcerating ourselves in chapter and verse. Since we can remember, first they tell us, you must seek their truth by challenging assumptions about your empathy for the other. Meaning, oh, you're seeing other things? Oh, well, then you must be crazy. Oh, you're feeling other things? You must be nuts. Here, take this psychoactive drug, you know? Go on Prozac. And with raising their most peckish question, who are you to question them, right? For they represent the true truth, right? They tell you they have power to manifest the pernicious, toxic, materialistic mud puppet illusionary reality of their God and cause you a whole lot of hurt in this life and the next. Now, does this sound like a loving God? And why does God need money? And why does he need political power? And why does God need an army? And why is God a he, right? And not a her? Or something unknowable, right? So those are some questions that the two of you might want to think about, you know. So I want to unsettle you. I want to say something that makes you reevaluate what you're doing with your life at this moment. We find ourselves on the battlefield of our soul's revolutionary piety. Piety is not blind obedience to authority. Piety is not critical indifference to being stuck to cultural, prejudicial, belligerent beliefs just because we've been culturally programmed to do so. We are programmed like an IBM. Hey, Alan, good to see you, buddy. Mm. So, did you catch my intro? You know, you know, and my questioning of the structure of religion and culture and business and all the rest. You know, and you know, I'm talking about one of the things we have to step up to is to be pious, piety, right? It's my new thing I'm working on, right? Along with growing a pair of ovaries. Right? And again, piety is not blind obedience to authority. That's what religion is. You know? Piety is not critical indifference to being stuck. That's what the politics of banking and the military industrial psychoactive media education banking complex is. You know, they are all there, you know, to manifest critical indifference in us being stuck. Right? Okay, I'll just keep reading this one paragraph. So I've been writing a lot. You know, I write a lot every. You know, and I suggest everyone. So I drink. I'm like an Indian, right? How did the Indians? They didn't have watches. They didn't have the smartphone to tell them when to wake up, when to go to sleep. They go to sleep when the sun would go down, and they would wake up when the sun would go up. And so when the Indians had to do something before sunrise, they would drink a bunch of water before they went to sleep. And so they'd have to wake up in an hour or two or three or four, depending on their bladder, and take a piss, right? So that was their alarm clock. And I do similar things in that I drink tea before I go to sleep. Not a lot, just a cup. And in a couple hours, I stop eating at 7, and I go to sleep sometime between 9 and 12:30 a.m. So, and then I pretty much sleep until the sun comes up, which is now that I kick the clock back. I wake up probably around 7:30, right? Because even though I'm on top of a mountain, I'm in a holler of the top of that mountain. So the sun has to come over the top to get shine down in my little niche. And so, talking about that, last night was really the first of the cold nights. I went down to 20, and my little box did pretty good. I had one space heater, and it kept it around 50. I can deal with that. And it was 20. It was 20 for a good 4 or 5 hours, long enough for that box to get cold. So, and over where my toilet is, I left it dribbling, and I left a little space heater in that box, and that stayed to the 60s, and nothing froze. So I don't know how it's going to be next week. It's supposed to, the next few days, not just next week. Next few days is supposed to be kind of really cold at night, and still cold in the morning, and then still, just at freezing, like 35 during the day. So that is, problematic, because if it doesn't get, it's supposed to go up to, 60 today. So even if it got, as it did, got down to 20, being 60 for a few hours will warm things up enough. So, yeah, so I'm in my test zone right now, right? So I write a lot. So when I wake up in the morning, you know, around 3:30, and this is another thing. If you wake, so you have alpha, beta, delta sleep, and so when you go through the first getting relaxed enough to go to sleep, then going into deep sleep, and then going into REM sleep, right? And if you want to remember your dreams, you drink a little water, wake up around 3, take a piss, then go back to sleep, and you will remember your dreams. So what I do is, you know, wake up around 3, and if I got to take a piss, I do it. And if I feel like going back to sleep, if I was like in the midst of a really good dream, a twitch, I, go back to that dream, and I can, right? And then I am consciously aware of that dream. And what's interesting is I'll be having a really interesting, and I've been having some pretty interesting dreams the last few nights. And what'll happen is I'll be like, I was dreaming about living in the Victorian age, right? And I basically, good day, sir. And I basically was having a good time in the Victorian age, right? And I was hanging out with all those great scientists, who were ready to, step onto the doorstep of the new age, which they knew was coming. I mean, all this stuff about global warming and weather change and Earth changes. Well, man, those guys knew about it in the 1880s, 1890s. The people knew about it in the 1840s. People knew about it in the 1760s. People, because I know they know about it because they wrote about it, and the Greeks wrote about it, right? So, and that's because all these people would do what I'm doing. They wake up at 3 after having a dream and write it down. And that's what I do. So this thing that I'm writing here, piety is not blind obedience to authority. Piety is not critical indifference to being stuck to cultural pressure, prejudicial, belligerent beliefs just because we've been culturally programmed to do so. I mean, we see it on the YouTube, we see it on the TV. They teach us that in school. And the piety is not critical indifference. That is our cultural, right? That is the hidden hand saying, be indifferent. Don't care about the other. Don't care about yourself. Eat that extra cheeseburger. Get obese. Go ahead. So there's five of you. How about some thumbs up, gang? And remember, keep going back and checking that you're subscribed and hit that bell because I don't know why YouTube loves to disconnect that on me. And anybody who wants to jump into my The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail and leave me a message, I'd love it. And if you want to leave me any cash, I still need $200 to fix my car. Um, Piety is the acknowledgement in the supernatural in all our relations that there is a spiritual wind at our back to propel us towards a life of love's integrity, honesty, and love's co-creative grace. This sublime dependence that is faith in love's co-creative creativity of the unconditional forgiveness, manifesting a great gratitude, which is the best of all our human experiences is gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right? And people ask me, well, what do you believe in? Do you gotta believe in Jesus? Well, I like Jesus, I think he's a great guy. I wish his followers, I'm a recovering Roman Catholic. I grew up in a Catholic family. And again, the first 7 years of my life, my grandma took care of me and she was like, She liked Jesus. She liked her church, but the religion, not so much. And I had a godfather who was a cardinal. And he had plans for me. I was either going to be the Pope or, the Werner von Braun for the Catholic Church, right? I was going to discover God through science, right? And that's kind of piety pie. Yes, it's awful. I just had some, and there's the crumbs of my piety pie right there. It's always good to have dessert with breakfast. My grandma always said, it's good to start the day off with dessert. So piety is the acknowledgement in the supernatural. What is super? It's more than what we can see with our eyes, that we can smell with our nose, right? Why does a dog want to like us, right? A dog gets, I lived in New Mexico. I lived in Albuquerque. I lived in a Chicano, really poor neighborhood. And that was the first, like, real ghetto, poor neighborhood, 1972. And um, because I lived in Harlem, and that wasn't a poor neighborhood. That was everyone on Second Avenue was everyone off the boat, right? And every 2 blocks was a different, Italians, and all different kinds of Italians, Sicilian Italians, Northern Italians, Mountain Italians, right? Jews, 20 different types of Jews. Um, People from, all Eastern countries, Germany, and Yugoslavia, and Lithuania, and Poland, and each one of those had about 20 different types of Polish people and Lithuanian people. This small of a country is not as many different factions. Ireland, Irish, oh my God, there were the 9 counties. So when someone who's a troll comes in and tells me they're from Ireland, because so many folks are from Ireland, and I say, what county are you from? And it takes a while for them to go on Google and find what counties there are. Then they come back and say, oh, I'm from Kerry. And I said, so what's your favorite Kerryman joke, right? And then they just basically tell a American Irish joke, right? Because every nationality that came over here had jokes told about them, right? Because every nationality, I mean, when the Germans first came over here, they were worse than black people. When the Italians, they were worse than black people. Hispanics worse than black people. I mean, that's how our cultural, you know, motif. This piety is not critical indifference to being stuck to cultural, prejudicial, belligerent beliefs just because we've been culturally programmed to do so. And that's what those jokes were about. Freud said the worst joke there is the worst psychological, um, you know, what, everyone now has PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. Everyone's got a disorder. Oh, your body, you know, indifferent disorder. And the one I like now is DID. That's basically back in the day when I was going to school, they called it multiple personality disorder, right? And what is disorder? Disorder is the lack of order, meaning your inability to be um, put into that critical indifference, meaning the order that the hidden hand wants is the critical indifference to being stuck. When you can't get stuck, you have a disorder. There's something wrong with you. You've got HDAD or ADAD or DID or PTSD or STD. You got some kind of disorder. You know, where when all it is that you are being able to see the fray of the tapestry of the lie that is being told to us, and the you know canary in a coal mine is just kind of can't help themselves. Just go have a disorder, and that's Donald Trump. Donnie Trump has got a disorder. Virtually every president we've ever had has a disorder, right? And or was a program robot. And I have friends of mine who just hate Donald Trump, and I say, no, look, this guy is great. He is finally showing, like, when he goes fake news. Our news has always been fake. You know, who started all the wars but the Hearst newspapers and the Pulitzer news? Now they get Pulitzer prizes for lying. You know, and Nobel Prize. Where did that come from? From Mr. Nobel, who discovered dynamite and nitroglycerin, and please, that he industrialized death. You know, thank you, Mr. Nobel. Thanks for those prizes. And they give you chump change, 200 grand. They should give the money he's made. He should give you a couple mil. So my little thing. No, don't do that. Mm. Uh, do. So I'm working on Broken Girl, and I'm working on Life Explored, and I got it on my other laptop here because this other guy. Okay, so here's for all you trolls, right? Haven't you? Let's see. Boo. Piety is the acknowledgement of the supernatural in all our relations. That there is a spiritual wind at our back. That's why we're here. There's this wind at our back that propels us towards a life of love's integrity, honesty, and love's co-creative grace. Wouldn't you like to have that? Well, to have that, you have to explore your life. Just to accept the critical indifference of being stuck, and just to get a flat screen, just to get a pair of kicks, no. Um, this sublime dependence that is faith. People ask me, do I believe in anything? I don't believe in anything, but I tell them I have faith in love's co-creation because it's my dependence. It's that thing I depend on. How I can do this, how I can live on, 500 and change a month, for everything, my medicine, my gas, my insurance, my everything. How many of you guys could do that? And I find it as a blessing because, hey, it's getting me trained to when the lights go out. I'll be fine because I'm living with barely lights. Let's see. This sublime dependence that is faith loves co-creativity of unconditional forgiveness, manifesting great gratitude. Would you like to have gratitude? That's the best human characteristic. Not hate, not fear, not greed. Gratitude. Are you ready to share anything? So all Yo-Yo and all the other Yo-Yo's got a channel that's strictly about me and how it hates me. I don't know what gender it is. And I'm pretty much sure that Yo-Yo is just he is one of the canaries in the coal mine. And I am his noxious gas. And again, remember, more thumbs up, Eve 9. This sublime dependence that is faith in love's co-creative, unconditional forgiveness manifests great gratitude and creates a blessed environment that controls our ego. Meaning it's kind of hard not to be in this mud puppet and not have an ego, but I was taught to have a non-ego, right? Because this sublime dependence that is faith in love's co-creative unconditional forgiveness manifests great gratitude. And that creates a blessed environment that controls our egos, market driven saleability like slaves on the block, where people are most concerned with being the next spectacle, the next image of adoration, the next exemplar of success within the construct of, the stuck critical indifference, right? Where people are most concerned with being the next spectacle, the next image of adoration, the next exemplar of success of the, you know, critical indifference of being stuck. This slavery reinforces the egocentric, self centered narcissism of the mercantile establishment of the fashionably fascist soul, where taste in the fashionably thing creates the next human holocaust. Yeah. To reject this taste, and you're just expressing your First Amendment over there. Keep it up, buddy. You're an American. You're expressing your First Amendment, and you're an American. You know what? The only thing you got to add to that is this one little word called empathy. You know what I'm saying? Because I love Donald Trump because I just wish he went further when he goes, fake news, right? What? Everything is fake news, except if I hear it from you. When you tell me how you feel, it's not fake news. He'll take it down a notch.
He will?
Yeah, he will.
I doubt
Let's see. To reject. See, that's why I like this place. Where people are most concerned with being the next spectacle, the next image of adoration, the next exemplar success. This slavery reinforces the egocentric, self centered narcissism of the mercantile establishment of the fashionable fascist soul, where taste and the fashionable thing creates the next human holocaust. How do these things happen? How do these wars happen? How do these unbelievable, we all give ourselves away so easy. And that's why we have to, step up to, having our hearts in love's co creation. That's what we need to serve, you know? Let's see. Faith in love's creative creativity of unconditional forgiveness manifests a great gratitude and creates a blessed environment to control ego's market-driven saleability, like slaves on the block, where people are most concerned with being the next spectacle. I don't care about that. You don't care about that. You're the cadre. The next, so say we all. The next image of adoration. Do I look like I kind of want to be, you know, in adoration? Look at my, you know, you know, this is my adoration hat. This is my the image of this is Donald Trump every night before he goes to sleep. Oh, oh. Anyway, where taste in the fascist fashionable thing creates the next human holocaust. To reject this taste of fascist fashionable thing, we begin with being happy. Being happy is not being selfish. Being happy is not being about yourself. Being happy is about making the other happy, right? Your life is not so much about what you can do for yourself, but what your life can mean as an example to someone else. Generosity of forgiveness is freedom of love's unconditional, universal examination of the spiritual consciousness, where we are perpetually happy for what we can do for someone else by making them happy through our example. You know, yep, Trump rubs his chump. Donnie Larry Chump, our great executive, King, um, does rub his nipples and wears. This is the royal hat of the corporate chief of Chump, right? And Donald J. Trump isn't the only chump. We have the best chumps money can buy in our legislatures. You know what did Lana say? Always something that is good with people. Yep, yep. And that's what I look for. The good thing I can say, hey, and I have to be grateful because I would never hear other. Exactly, exactly. When the canary in a coal mine begged me to come back to the school, and I pretty much did because I had to. Like, I'm gonna have to go back to Virginia at the end of this month because I need another eye operation and a few other medical things. Beautiful rose, right? Exactly. There's something you can. The beautiful rose, right? Which is my grandma, Rosa, Rosemary, Rosa. Um, Basically, so and then when I got in the hood of the school, he kind of said, "Oh, can you go buy a case of beer?" And I said, "Yeah," because it was kind of near our third anniversary, right? So I was going to get, I thought we could have a nice little party. Get there, and I spent my last $15. Didn't have a nickel, right? And because in about 3 days, my Social Security was going to come in, and I could just, hang low and and relax before I had my eyes examined. So, I mean, operated on. So I got there, and Canary had a beer and then another beer, and I had one. I had one beer that lasted me a whole night. And then he took out his little phone. He had it in his hand. It's like you can't put it down. Me, I leave my phone in the car, turned off, right? So anyway, he then read me this extremely, you know, unhinged, um, you know, email that he sent to his ex about why it makes no sense that they shouldn't be together. That only makes sense that they're together and da da da. And she kept saying, shut up. I don't want to hear from you. Leave me alone. Anyway, so I was trying to say, John, you need to move on. You need to, not have the laundry list. You know, get a life. You know, enjoy it. I mean, man, you got all the money you need. You got this beautiful house. You got the best internet connection on the. I mean, John has this connection. Well, that guy used to live there, and again, John couldn't put up with this guy's happiness. So he, after the guy, got rid of his house, moved all the stuff in the school, put, fixed our hot water. So we had hot water. We didn't have hot water. Fixed the toilet so it worked. Fixed, put real, we have, John has better internet in the school than Cox has, meaning in their home office, because this guy, his business is he runs people's IT. And in his home office, he has a fiber optic coming straight into the office, and then he sends out the signal microwave to people downtown. So they're uninterrupted when Cox drops out. So he sent a little antenna up to the school, and John still has it. So the guy lasted, John threw him out after being there 2 months because the guy ran his business from the school. He had the big windows down in the basement. He put this beautiful, nice table there. He had all his screens so he could run his business. And he had the thing in his ear, and he was talking to his clients. And John would sit up at the top of the steps and listen in on everything he said. And then when they came down, they started screaming at him. You think you're so tough, you're so big, you're so, and what did you say about me? And because he was listening to every word that guy said to catch anything that this guy might say about John, but he didn't because guy didn't care less. He had this night, plus he put in a wood stove down in the basement. That's like keeps the whole house warm. If John just fed that thing, he wouldn't have to spend $2,800 a month on electricity that barely heats the place, right? Because that school is not insulated. My little box somewhat is insulated. So one little space heater keeps it kind of warm. Kind of. I mean, a lot. I mean, last night it was 20 degrees. And it was like 58 degrees in the little box. And was in bed with my electric blanket. I was snug as a bug, snug as a sensei in a rug. So, yeah, Lena, I love you, baby. Good to see you. Yep, exactly. So, and like I say, the life I live, I am still being true to my grandma's 28 rules. And one of them was always live like a millionaire, just don't be one. So I'm out the most beautiful, even with the leaves off the trees. It's beautiful. I was sitting the other day, it was out, and I was in the sun, and the sun was coming through the trees, and the leaves were there. The sun wouldn't be hitting me, but I was being kept kind of warm by the sun. Solar power is pretty amazing. That sun hits you. So, and the wind, I was like, braced so the wind wasn't hit. And when I closed my eyes and went into state, the sun coming through all of the limbs was like lace patterns on my imaginary mirror. It was like really, yeah, Mother Teresa. Well, it's like God said. I mean, Jesus said, it's easier for a elephant to go through the needle, the eye of a needle, than a rich man to, walk through a door. So, um, yeah, both sides of the coin. But the thing is to, be happy. And what makes me happy is making other. Why do you think I do this? Is it to become the next Piggy Pooh or whoever that guy who, when he colors his toenails, he gets 20 million people watching it within 3 minutes? No, because that guy represents that being stuck. That's why he's there. The hidden hand loves that guy. Now the hidden hand allows us to be here basically because it knows it needs to be rebranded. It knows It needs some new ideas. And I'm doing this A for you guys, to give you, be that example for you to step out of that being stuck. And it's hard not to, living in the material world is like living in a world of, fly paper. You get, over here, this bill, this, that, and, it's easy to get stuck, you know. So, man, you can kid all you want, baby. It's all by, but, so I use the word frack, right? And I use the word shite. And I use all these words that, you know, YouTube and Gmail and Google and all those guys don't mind, right? And venture, I had a teacher who said, you can curse all you want in class. And every time you want to say curse, you have to do one of three things: curse in Latin, you know, only use curse words that Shakespeare used, or say moo cow. So it was great. You could like vent all you want. Moo cow this, moo cow that, you know. So anyway, we'll go back to what I was saying here in my ratting. Read more. Hey. Uh, Generosity of forgiving is a freedom of love's unconditional, universal emancipation of spiritual consciousness. Because whenever we hate, whenever we're angry, we're fearful, it's like keeping the lid on our spiritual consciousness, our ability. When you die, you'll either be brought into the wearing blender of reincarnation, or if you have spent your life being conscious, you can be conscious when you die. There's a great book called Doors to Perception, right, by Huxley. And he also wrote Brave New World. And he's a guy I constantly go on about, the being the artist in the first person, the savage, right? So later, buddy. Drive safe out there. Uh, yep. So generosity of forgiveness is the freedom of love's unconditional, universal emancipation of spiritual consciousness. And that's why I started Dreamy Dreamland, because I want to help all of you adepts. You're my students. And the class we are in is to emancipate our spiritual consciousness. So you can do whatever you want. When you have emancipated your spiritual consciousness, you will not be, held by the fly paper of prejudice. When I tell people they're prejudiced, they go, "No, I'm not black people." No, that's racism. Prejudice is when you have a belief in something to the point that you kill for it. I believe in the red, white, and blue, and I believe in God, and I believe in no, I believe in my holy Bible, and all that is a comic book. You know, I have this great Bible, right? It's the James, but it's also in Hebrew, Greek, and Sumerian. It's like that big. So, and each of those other languages, they have the best English translation it's got. So, but it also, in that translation of Sumerian, it's got uh, the translation. And then it'll say, well, this word in English really doesn't quite mean what this word means, right? Because, and there's a sentence here I've written, I'll get to, because we've only been, oh, look at that. It was 44 minutes and 44 seconds. Um, yeah, a little chilly, 20 degrees last night, but It was almost 60 in my little box. It was quite, and I was under the big covers and I had my electric blanket. And when I was sitting at my typing desk, I have another electric blanket that I wrap myself in and plug it in. And it's really interesting because I have a smart meter, right? So when I'm wrapped in the electric blanket, the electromagnetic field going by me is just like in the Matrix, where you see all the code. When I go into state, I can see all the code, right? These are the things I want to teach you guys, right? And maybe we'll get there someday. I mean, it's been now, let's see, I started May 8th, 2018. So May 8th of 2009 was 1 year, 12 months. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, right? So 12 and 7 makes 19 months so far, right? Give or take. And I hope I'm sinking in there on you guys, on your brain cells and your heart spiritual point of view, where you are not, stuck to prejudice. We have a emancipated spiritual consciousness, or at least you're getting there. Yep. So say we all. Love is a cadre's way. So say we all. Love in our ability to share it with the other is the cadre's way. So say we all. I love that term. So say we all. It's just like when I was grandfather Davis of the Iroquois Nation. They say aho, right? A lot. And so to reject, my battery's running out here, so I have to keep reading. To reject this taste in the fascist, fashionable thing, we begin with being happy. Being happy is not being selfish. Being happy is not being about yourself. Being happy is about making the other happy. Your life is not so much about what you can do for yourself, but what your life can mean to someone else. Generosity of forgiveness is freedom of love's unconditional, universal emancipation of spiritual consciousness, where we are perpetually happy for what we are and what we can do for someone else by making them happy through our example. Having you talk smack, and this is for all you trolls out there. Having you talk, having you talking smack to me can't bring me down because I am happy. Being happy, love's co-creation is cause it's just is what we are meant to do. That's the only thing we're meant to do is make other people happy. Not start wars, not kill people, not be zillionaires. Being happy is the only truth of love's co-creation that we can share with all our relations. Being happy is what makes me clap to a song along with a stranger. Then we smile and realize we are now friends, even if they aren't the same tribe, for it makes us happy because it is just what we are meant to do. So how spiritually revolutionary are you feeling? Huh? How revolutionary are you feeling, guys? Make other people happy is also dangerous. Some people is happy when they see the inside of others or ruining a child's life. Now those people aren't happy. They're a sociopath, you know. And that is Freud called that Freudenschade, getting joy out of other people's suffering. Now we have that kind of hot wired in our head from back in the day because, when the saber-toothed tiger, we were all like, running from the saber-toothed tiger. And then it caught up with Larry. It's like all those films you see from Africa. And, there's the savannah and there's the watering hole and there's a couple of trees. And the nicest, you know, shadiest spots are where the lions are kind of hanging out. The wildebeest are over there. These guys are walking around in the mud. Those guys are sipping over there. And then all of a sudden, one of the lions kind of gets up, stretches out. It's like the guy starting the Olympics. She's stretching because it's always a woman who does the hunting. Stretches, the muscles, and then kind of starts just to walk around, staying in the thing and looking at. It's like looking at the menu. Am I gonna have a wildebeest today, or a zebra, or a deer? Definitely not going to have any of those guys in the mud because they're too big and too strong, and they're in the mud. Those guys are going to run. Those are the ones I'm going to go after. So he's walking around, and then once she finds the one Larry that is, or Kenny, or Billy, or Timmy, or Bobby, any of those, gazelles or zebras that their first name ends in Y and are males, because they're expendable. The mother lion doesn't go after females. That's the males because they're expendable, right? And so it's not making them happy. What is doing is, people who, you know, exhibit. Men, you have a good day. God bless. So it releases cortisol, meaning when you're like, you know, fight or flight. When you are exhibiting that, you have adrenaline, cortisol, and then cortisol flushes through your body and basically kills everything. So the one thing that kind of doesn't die is um, that little part of your amygdala. It's not even your amygdala. It's a backside of this part of your stem. It's called your reptile brain. That kind of goes, yeah, I'm still alive. I feel terrible. I've got all this crappiness in every cell of my body, and I'm miserable. But hey, and that's so they're not happy. Well, just because you think doesn't mean you am. Could be a big illusion. You know, and all along we just get news that we are, and the Homo sapiens story is more complex. Well, not really, but meaning yes, we get older, but we don't because time is an illusion. We've got all the time in this, non-existing mud puppet reality because we're going to get reincarnated. And those morons who go on about end times, never going to happen. Haven't happened yet. If you were living in the dark ages, you would think was the end of times then. If you were living during, the the plague, you would think it was end times, but no. If you were in the disco days of the '70s, like I was, and everyone was dying of AIDS, man, I had so many friends that would die of AIDS. And in the '80s, when everyone knew what AIDS was, and it was, it was like, whoa. And so that's why I'm a monogamous. Once I get a girlfriend, I stick with that girlfriend. I don't screw around. And I don't, when I was before AIDS, when it was still probably percolating, I was a disco king, so I could have any woman I wanted, really not. And there was a 2 or 3 month period when I kind of tried that out, and it was so useless, so empty, so void, so meaningless that I stopped. That was the only time I ever really did that. And so, because up until then, I'd have a girlfriend, I'd stick with that girlfriend until we unilaterally said, okay, I'm moving on. And usually it was them. And so, because they'd say, wow, you're the greatest, da da da. And they'd have all these expectations. And then they learned that, no, you're just you. And I still love you. I still like you, but you're not going to do all these things I want you to do. Therefore, I'm moving on. You know, oh, info we have. Yes, and that's, Lena, I said, um, everything bullpucky. I said everything's an illusion. I said everyone's stuck to a fascist fashionability of the thing. I think it's not to be the fascist, fashionable thing person, right? To be Lena, the beautiful Lena that you are. Have a good time. Be enthralled by all those things you love. And there's always going to be a new disease, right? And I constantly speak of this, good thoughts bring good words bring good actions, good deeds bring good outcomes. Back to this. So, how spiritually revolutionary are you feeling, Lena? You kind of seem like you're stuck to that, um, you know, fascist fashionability thing. Come on, girl, you're better than that. How spiritually revolutionary are you feeling? Do you have a happy piety bone in your body? You think to yourself, being happy can't be that easy. That's your problem. You're thinking of yourself rather than being present with how you feel in happy communion with love's co creation of all our relations. I want you to close everybody, I want you all to close your eyes and breathe in consciousness deeply, 20% more than your robot autonomous self does. And right now I'm having a little medical problem that the weather has changed, right? It's been really dry around here, and now it's been wet and cold, and all those things that I live in the middle of a forest, really in the Cherokee National, I live in a national forest. I got little chunks that Uncle Sam doesn't have, but this is one that my lawyer has, and so I'm living there, and and all summer was beautiful. It didn't rain. It was sunny. It was gorgeous. Between 11:30 and 2, it'd be like a microwave oven, but so it got pretty dried out, and so every leaf, every fern, every fungus, everything dried out. So then beginning almost the last week of October, it started raining, get cold, rain, cold. And so all of those things all those fungi that wanted to live went crazy. Did every kind of fungi thing it could in 2 weeks rather than a whole spring, summer, and fall. So that's what's kind of affected me. And I was taking a medicine for my blood pressure that was fine for the last few months, but once it got soggy and moist and to the max, it made me have this little tickle. So they changed the medicine, but it's taken a couple of weeks. But all the things they gave me, which I didn't take, I just changed that medicine because I read up on it and said, oh, yes. So anyway, so I have no teeth, right? So there's a lot of space in there. So I kind of am a mouth breather. Well, what I realized, I went into state and said, how can I get rid of this little tickle? Is it this medicine, that medicine? It's called muscle testing. You hold the the medicine or the herb or the whatever or the question. It's like a magic 8 ball, but it's more to you. So I basically muscle tested all of the medicines, in state, not physically, because I didn't have the money to buy them. So, and it said, yes, change that medicine, but all the rest, forget about. Yeah. So, what it did say, and I asked the question, so I'm a mouth breather now. It's the fact that I'm breathing more out of my mouth than out of my nose. And it was like, yes. And so now, and I consciously have to do this. And so it's my higher guide saying, well, Al needs to meditate more, so we're going to do this to him. So it'll force him to be more conscious in his breath. So, and I consciously started doing that last night. I woke up this morning, no little gunk in my lungs. Right? So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Yep. Friday. Yep. Uh, Shady people. Shady. Remember, you can use the word shite. And you don't have to look for the shitey people. You can look for the nice people. Like you saw me having interaction with the guy, right? And he was annoying enough for the guy who owned the place to tell him to shut up. And I said, no, no, the guy's just expressing himself. His First Amendment rights, blah, 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 blah. You heard me. You can go back and hear what I said. When he came by, he smiled and gave me like, you're my buddy, right? So he could have been a shitey guy, but now he's my buddy. And there are a whole bunch of people, when they first started to see me wearing this hat, they were like, "Oh my God, who the heck is that?" And then I started reading their palms and being nice to them. Now I'm the guy who they sit down at the chair and talk to about issues, right? So, um, okay. So everyone's sitting there, they're relaxed, they're breathing in 20% more, breathing out 30%, right? They're illuminating their imaginary mirror. And they're seeing the prana come in through their lungs and energizing their blood. It's going to every cell in your body, and you are seeing the mitochondria uh, energizing to the point where the, your cell is splitting, and as the RNA zips apart, you're looking down in there, and you're seeing your imaginary mirror. You're illuminating your imaginary mirror, and you're taking that light into your subconscious, and you're going into your library of your Akashic record. And be with love's creation, great I am, that it is. And breathe out 30% of all that crap you've been told yourself to be. There is a lot to unpack from that, you know. I want you to close your eyes and breathe in the consciousness deeply, 20% more than your robot autonomous self does. And be with love's co-creation, great I am, that it is, right? Now you say, wait a minute, you know, there's a lot to unpack in this little paragraph. First, how does one breathe in consciousness? Well, what is consciousness? It is. And that's it. It is. And where I found that out, I was once at a friend of mine's, I was a newspaper photographer um, in High Point, North Carolina. My boss was my best friend, one of my best friends from high school. We had gone to a high school that was for the uber rich. You know, I went to school with Austin Hurst and Eddie Merrill, Ricky Lynch, you know, the people who owned everything. But they were still just, middle management. And but they were way richer than anybody you know. And I had this one friend, Alex Orb, whose family kind of owned U.S. Steel, and his father would send him a check every week for $600, and his father didn't send it. His father's assistant's secretary would send it, and the check was printed out. So his father's signature, his father didn't even put his signature; it just printed out, and that was in 1966. And he got $600 every frigging week. That's $2,400 a month. And one day he was like really upset. He started throwing stuff around the room, and he was tearing something up in little pieces, and he threw it in the garbage. Luckily, nothing else was in the garbage. I took it out, dumped it on my desk, and put it together like a jigsaw puzzle. So it was a check, right? And I pasted it all together, and I said, "Hey, put your name on this. Go cash this. Put it in my account." We had a school store, and I had my parents put zero in it. These other guys had 10, 20 grand in it. And, so everything you needed, your books, your this, your that, you had, to get at the school store. And, they had, if you wanted a cheeseburger or milkshake, or they had really good milkshakes. So I couldn't, I had to like wait in the little room where everyone sat and had their milkshake, and they wouldn't even put it in the basket. I would go around with my own straw and suck it out of all of their, and then I would clean up, and the lady who ran it was like, "Let me make your own milkshake." So I had that guy put his $600 into my account. I said, "It'll really, really piss your dad off. Forget about just throwing the check away. He's keeping the money. Give the money to me." So I've been doing that just like I'm saying now. Go to the dude awake 42 at Gmail and put some cash um, in my PayPal. Right. That's again. I need to fix my car. So and if you don't see me for a long time, it's because I didn't have the money to fix my car, and it's I had to like save it. And like right now, I'm down to my last quarter. That's why I'm here rather than further away. This place is only 12 miles away. The other places are 40 miles away. So anyway, and I say, you're not being spiritually revolutionary. Remember, I first said, close your eyes, breathe consciousness deeply. That is cutting down the irrelevant. When you breathe, like I now have to breathe so I don't cough all the time, what I am doing is cutting down the irrelevant data of my meat puppet coarse, limited sensibility. You will find a doorway of perception that you were never told or knew that was there. And once you walk through that door, everything changes. For you wake up to who you are, and you no longer can be lied to, for it is clear to you. So there I was sitting in my friend's bedroom, right? And we had jobs, and I actually had my own place, but he was still living with his parents so he could save up more money to buy drugs. And and this is the '60s, and everybody was doing that. It was no longer, it wasn't even against the law then, right? So, I mean, the drugs he liked weren't even scheduled. So, anyway, I was doing one of his favorite drugs, and I was just sitting on his bed. It was summertime, and the door window was open, and I was looking across at this great field that went out, 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 right? And and his parents had a very nice cul-de-sac house built in the '50s, stone, very southern, and very big and very nice. But everyone, all white people had one of these houses if they were at a certain level. Both these people were college educated. Um, the daddy was the head of the whole library system of the county, and the mommy was head of the Red Cross, right? And so they're very respected, and blah blah blah, and so liberal, right? So we actually have black friends. And High Point, North Carolina was not like most southern cities. It was the center of furniture manufacturing, which was unionized. So everybody on the manufacturing floor um, was white and black, and they all got paid the same thing. So when they went out that parking lot, they both drove out the same Buicks, went out the same road, went down the road, and then the white guy went to the white side of town, black guy went to black guy's side, and then they went up, and they both lived in cul-de-sacs that represented the same socioeconomic modality. And that's when I knew that race was not the thing. That was the smokescreen. Because in that little town, everyone got along really, really well. Everyone, Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, whether you were black or white. They didn't have, oh, you can't, they didn't have signs saying no black people. Black people just didn't go there. you know, they had their own places that were actually better. Like the black high school was so much better than the white high school of the same socioeconomic. Because the rich, like my friend, went to prep school. He didn't go to that white high school, you know. But the black folk got the same amount of money as the white folk for their high school, but they put their own money more, doubled down on their kids' education. So in the 1960s, every one of those kids was graduating high school, right? And then they would go off to um, the mills, all had like apprentice kind of like where you'd be a manager. right? If you went through this, you've got a high school diploma, and in your senior year, you were taking this course in the high school about how to run the furniture thing. You graduated high school, you went into apprentice to be a manager. So virtually more than half the managers of these furniture factories were black, right? Because the guys who owned they were putting out the best product they could. So it wasn't about race. It was about money in their pocket. It's always about money in the pocket, right? So there I was sitting on my friend's bed, looking out this window in an altered state, and it's summertime and it's got screen and the wind is blowing at me and it's feeling great and I can feel all of nature. I can feel the neighbors newly mown grass and smelling it, and I can, the honeysuckle over there and the peach, and it's all kind of going over me, and I am becoming all our relations, right? And I'm only 19, 18, 19 when this is happening. And I'm like, I haven't really lived with indigenous people yet, but I'm experiencing the artist in the first person as the indigenous person, right? And I'm seeing through this screen, how I take you into your Akashic record, and there's a big book with a big screen and all the 28 little screens all around to give the different angles. Well, this screen has like 500 little screens. Each one of those little holes in the screen, I'm seeing pictures of everything, of like what this valley was a million years ago underwater, you know, what it was 2 million years. There was ice. I'm seeing all of this, and I kept the only I was seeing all this stuff, and what I kept hearing and feeling as all my relations were blowing over me was it is, it is, it is. And you go into the occult, and there is a great I am. And then when you like read Gurdjieff or Ouspensky and they explain it, like Gurdjieff's book, Meeting of Amazing, Remarkable Men, they go into what it. So when a year or two later, when I read Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, and they were describing this experience that I had on my friend's, bed, and I'm sitting on his Mickey Mouse, comforter. I go, because like I said, I had my own place, right? Now the place I lived in the black neighborhood. There was this thing called the Pink Teacup, best restaurant in town. Everybody went to, but it was in a black neighborhood, and the best food, and it had been the best restaurant in town for like 100 years, and in the upstairs there was a speakeasy back in the day. That was where everybody went to drink, right? And it had its own distillery up there, and it never got busted because the chief of police and the mayor and everybody went there, which they still did, right? So, I, being the newspaper photographer, the guys I hung out with were the police, and this is where I really learned how to hang with police and authority, right? And because everybody knew everybody, right? So, like the first time when I got this job, I showed up. I was living in Mark's, my buddy, who what he's a great, amazing photographer, really, and he was a great, amazing photographer his whole life. And when he was in high school, when he'd go home for summer, he would work at the newspaper. So, you know, we went through high school, we went off to college. We both went to college to study what we were already kind of. I went to Juilliard to study scenic design, and I was already the best boy for Lester Polikoff at Lincoln Center. And the same with my buddy. He was the number one photographer at the Hapone Enterprise. Well, his boss died, and they offered him his boss's job at 19. He called me up. I was at Duke, hanging with the psychotronic young lady working for DARPA and the SEAL Corporation, doing heavy duty experiments on the paranormal because they were taking Nazi experiments on the paranormal, and they were double downing them to bring them into advertising and intelligence. Right? So I was getting a little tired, I was getting a little iffy, antsy, because I had been at Duke for about 6 months, and we had a great time. And High Point wasn't that. So all my friends, like that girl, all of the above. And so I went off and took that job. And so I get there, I settle in to and his mom loved me, and his dad liked me, and his younger brother really, because my buddy acted like his younger brother was, he's my younger brother. Was his younger brother was really the cool one, because my buddy had too many issues. Whereas the younger guy watched his older brother screw up so much, even though he had all this talent and ability. The younger one said, "Screw it, I'm going to do everything I do to the best of my ability." Right. So he was at school, at public school, and they were segregated. And in his, he didn't want to go to the white high school because it sucked, you know, and he didn't get the privilege to go to a prep school like his older brother. So he went to the black school. And the only way he could do it was the black school got a bus, their own bus to pick up the black kids. And they had nobody to drive it. But this kid had, because he had worked on a farm, he had the right license to drive a school bus. So, at like 14, he became the school bus driver. And so basically, um, and because his parents were liberal, um, and that's when I realized what liberals are, people who feel guilty about being racist. So the younger brother, he had none of it. So he drove the school bus, and because he drove the school bus, the only high school he could go to was the black one, which he got as probably a better education than we did um, at the prep school, because the prep school was run like a jail, whereas the um, black high school of High Point, North Carolina, was like trying to ascend the young people as they realized, you know, in America, right now we're having this little fissy fit about Donnie Trump and the Democrats, and Donnie Trump's right about the Democrats because, and he's right about the, you know, fake news, and he's right about all of this conspiracy. I mean, this Donnie has done nothing worse than any of the other guys, except he's a total chump, right? And he does it right in front of everybody, like, look, you, frack you, I'm gonna do it, frack you, I'm Donnie Trump, frack you, and whereas the other guys have decorum, so our founding fathers, who were just like Donald Trump, it was all about them. It wasn't we the people; it was we white guys who want to own everything, because women, blacks, and everybody who wasn't one of those white rich guys was just chattel, was just property, right? And we're still that. We are living in that fashionable uh, land of the thing. The more things you got, the better you are. Now, I can relate to that. I got, the canary read that, showed that, that really sacred box that he opened and showed all this stuff, and you know, um, showed a picture of my great grandparents and read this letter, and he read it in a way that he didn't even understand what that letter said. He was, he said, "Oh, this letter's about me because he's talking about how sorry he is, and the children back home. It's just like me." No, no, it wasn't just, it's this guy had to go work for somebody just because he had like 6 kids. And he came from a rich family, but the only one who had control of things was this really nasty old aunt who was just like Mr. Potter in A Wonderful Life, right? And so he wasn't even like George Bailey. He was poorer than George Bailey. So, and he wasn't feeling too good, and he was out in the middle of nowhere working on something, and he was just getting sicker, and he knew this, and that's what he was trying to, tell his family. I'm doing my best. It's not going too good, but I love you all, right? And the canary thought it was about him. So there I am sitting on my friends, and that was my good buddy who got me the job. You know, um, was a canary in a coal mine because it was all about him. And why he liked me is that I I saw all the best in him, and I tried to be his friend and live by example. And one of the things that really pissed him off was I was there for maybe 8, 9, 10 months being the photographer. And so for about 4 weeks, I lived, or even less, I slept in that room, right? And, you know, I liked his younger brother way better than him. And his mother liked me better than her husband. He was like, because she was, even though she read the Red Cross, the reason why she married this guy, they both were lit majors, and she was brilliant in literature, where the other guy was just, you know, a bookkeeper. I mean, he was a nice guy, but he was a liberal, and kept telling me he was a liberal. Anyway, but the way they had black servants in their house, and the way he treated them. So, where I moved off to was there was this place, Pink Teacup. So the first, I get this job, I get, you know, shown how to do my job, and I had to shoot with a large format camera, right? 10-inch negative. One of those things you slide it in, you take the thing out, hit the shutter, there's a picture. And that's great because you got a gigantic, you can do depth of field. And I had a killer strobe, like 8 trillion candle power, So all I had to do is put it on a tripod, frame it. That's why people look and put the little cloth over the head and they look at the frame and they get it all right, you know, focus it as best, and then you stop it all the way down. You slide the frame in, the film frame in, and then you pull out the cover, and then you're there with a little bulb. Wait for it. Then the perfect thing happens. Strobe goes up. You always saw those like 19th century where they had the flash powder, right? That was just like my strobe, and I would get an amazing photograph. And the negative was 10 inches by 10 inches. So I could like take any part of that 10 inches I wanted, and everything was in perfect focus. I caught the moment, right? That's what Cartier-Bresson told me, catch the moment. And Lisette Modell always told me, catch the feeling. So I put the two together and caught the feeling of the moment. That's what makes me a really great photographer, you know? And I still do that, even when I'm doing this, right? Uh, uh, going out with your dog, your best friend. What kind of dog you got, Lena? I'm a dog boy myself. Uh, something Friday. Yep. So the it is all of those little frames. The picture of what is it is, right? You see it clearly. And that's why when we do through a guided meditation on conscious, I see it clearly, right? So when I left my friend's little bedroom, and how I did it. So my first job, I shot a lynching in Greenville, North Carolina, right? And the guy was dressed pretty good, but they had ripped all his clothes off, and he was just in his tidy whites, and he was hanging off the tree, right? And they were about to, the noose went over the big limb of the Yale hanging tree, and they had it tied to a truck, and they were going to pull his head off, right? So that scene I have in one of my novels, when I describe my grandma living with all these black people and this one family telling about their great grandfather who got lynched in front of the Edison generation station on Pearl Street, and I found that um, in the New York Library, and that's why I used it, and that because that's why I saw my first picture that I took of as I had my little police authorized press pass, and And so I was there in a big crowd. I had my camera up on a tripod, and I had this picture, and I kind of really didn't depth of field. I kind of focused the image on that guy's face and the crowd around him because I was a good, 100 yards back. But I could, by depth of field and focus, put the focus on the picture on the guy's body and face, right? And he was still kind of alive, and they were going to pull his head off. That's what's going, it's like going under the guillotine, but it was going to be a rope. So, and if you ever saw the movie um, Capote, where his last and greatest book is In Cold Blood, and he becomes so emotionally attached to those two guys and the story about what happened, how they got there, he does go to watching them die, right? And they show them in their jumpsuits, and they have this kind of, harness around them, around, like they were jet piloting, around their stomach, around their groin, around the shoulders, and it was leather and chains, and had these big things there, right? So why they did that was they're going to be hung, and the velocity of them, they up on this thing, and they open the trap door, whoop, and breaks their neck, they die. But the velocity was so strong, if they didn't have that harness on, which is then hooked to some chains, their head would come separated, and their head would go this way, and it was so gory that they made them wear these suits, and so the amount of chain that would stop them was about that much from the point of when they died from their neck being broken, so their head wouldn't pop off. But they weren't so nice to this black man on the Yale hanging tree, and his head popped off. And I caught that picture. I took a picture of him like that, and then when the truck took off, I got a picture of his head flying over a crowd of about 2,000, and the people going, ah, like trying, pushing each other out of the way to get the basketball of this black man's head. And once somebody caught it and was like, look, I won. And it was everyone screaming. There's this moment because they're so, I know you're talking about how evil people are happy about doing evil. Well, that's what this was. But at a certain point, their adrenaline and cortisol got the better of them, and they stopped, right? And just as that moment, the chief of police is standing next to me because I went to the police department and said, here I am. Here's what my editor wants. Where do I set up? And he took me there. He sat right next to me. And they didn't send a reporter, so I asked him, my boss gave the editor, not my boss, my buddy was my boss, but the editor gave me a list of questions, right? And so I asked him, and then I take the picture of and then the other one of his head flying through, and I wasn't quick enough to get someone catching, but I put another slide in there of film capturing everyone, going ecstatic. And then I took another one of them hitting this cortisol moment where they went, right? And that's when I turned to the chief of police and I said, what did that guy do to get hung like this? And the guy looked at me and goes, son, you're not one of us if you have to ask that question. He is a N-word, and he was just in the wrong place in the wrong time. And we have to keep these people in line. And I was like, and then he goes, you need to pack up and go. So I did. I packed up and I was gone. And that, and I was only about 19. I had seen I told you the story about the guy getting run over by the steamroller, and watching his body getting flattened into the blacktop. And the only thing that bounced back up was his sneakers. So, and they turned that guy who was rolled over by the steamroller into a speed bump because they couldn't get his body out of the blacktop. So they just kind of paved over it a few more times until there was this little bump. And that guy's name was Kenny. I'm sure that's where the guys from South Park got the fact that Kenny dies every time in every episode. And in that episode, Kenny died under the steamroller. So my next assignment was a day later, Saturday, and my again the editor, not my boss. My boss. He once I basically took over his job. He was off screwing women, and my best friend from high school was the photo editor, and you know, taken. And so he'd only show up at the prestigious shoots, where the rich people were and the girls were going to be. I got everything. I did everything else, right? So I the next shot I did, which was the next Saturday, I get a call, and so they gave me all the camera equipment and a car, and this great. I didn't even have a driver's license, but I did have a federal, state, county authorized press pass, and that was when I ever was questioned by. I didn't show them that was my ID. Here it is, and so and everyone got to know me. So anyway, so the next shoot I go to is get a call, and it's kind of in the trailer trash part of the white neighborhood, and I go over there, and it's this little box house, and a bunch of police cars with their lights flashing, and there's this big sergeant. He's got the three stripes, and you could definitely tell this guy was in charge because everybody else was doing stuff. And my the editor told me, he said, we have a relationship with the police. And I said, really? He said, yes. The police department here doesn't have a forensics department, so they don't even have photographers. So we do all the photography for the police department and the sheriff's department and the court department and this department. And we take everybody, anything that deals with authority in this county, we take the picture. We own the picture. Now we give them all the stuff, whatever they want, and we do it for them, but it gives us access into anything. So that's why we do it. I said, okay, sounds right by me. So he gave me this forensic book. He goes, you should read this. I go, okay. But this is like, I'm just about to head to shoot this thing. He goes, go look for Sarge. He'll show you the ropes. I said, okay. And I'm like, still not, I'm still like 5'8". I haven't quite hit my 6'1" yet. And so I drive, to where it is, and luckily High Point was laid out in those days very much like you could find things. Just go down that street, turn left, 2 blocks, there it is. So I learned that town relatively quickly. Other towns, not so much. Like Charlotte, I still, lived in Charlotte for a year and I can't even find, and now it's totally different. But anyway, so I find the place, I pull up, and my car is black, and it's a Ford LTD, just like all the other, because it's an old police car, and they have Ford LTDs, a few years younger, less miles. I have a black. They just spray painted it black, but it's still a police car. There's police radio in it. I mean, I'm like, I can talk to the police, right? I'm right there, and I have um, another radio that goes back to my office on a different frequency. And so that was kind of cool. Not quite a cell phone, but almost. And anywhere within a 20-mile radius, these two radios were clear as a bell. And 40 miles out of city, my police radio still kind of worked. And I just hit another thing. I could get highway patrol, which was, they had repeaters. So anyway, I was like Batman, and I wore black pants, white shirt, and that's it. That was my uniform. Right? And I had a jacket if I had to, and I had a black tie if I had to be a little more spiffy, but that was pretty much it. Short sleeve, white shirt, and black pants and black shoes. Everything out of Sears. So I go to this guy, and it's hot. I get, my boss tells me about, Saturday nights are pretty wild, so you'll be on call, right? And so, they they had my friends. He had a phone in our room. That wasn't his parents' phone. So I was, my boss, the editor said, so just stay around that phone. If we need you, we'll give you a call. And if you don't know where it is, I'll tell you how to get there. So, about 7, 8 o'clock, it's, maybe even later, maybe 10 o'clock because it was dark and it was still summer. So phone rings, pick it up. He goes, hey, yeah, there's been shooting at such and such. This is how you get there. So I kind of wrote it down. And he said, from out your front door, turn right, turn left. He was better than, Surrey. So anyway, and he said, if you've got any questions, get on the radio. So I drive down there and I pull up in this house and I get out and I kind of walk up and it's summer night, really hot. So I'm not wearing my black pants. I'm wearing kind of just a pair of like funky shorts, like Dollar Tree shorts and flip flops and a spaghetti T-shirt, right? Because it was hot. It's like 90 degrees at night and a zillion% humidity because it's the flatlands of North Carolina. So I walk up to, hey, you Sarge? Yep, that's me. He said, so you're the new kid? I said, that's me. And I told him, I said, I'm just gonna call you kid. Fine with me, Sarge. I'll just call you Sarge. He goes, fine with me. You're the kid. I'm Sarge. I said, right. So what do I shoot? He goes, okay. I want you to go to my car over there. He had a nice Lincoln, not a police car. Now he had a thing in his windshield that was blinking, but he had the Lincoln. So he says, I want you to go in the trunk. There's a little button. You just open the door, and there's a little button there. It'll pop the trunk, and in there you'll find some waiters. And I think he said a box of waiters. And the only waiter I knew was a guy with a tray and a towel over his arm and asking you what you want. And so I'm thinking about, waiters. Well, they're in a box or whatever's the box. And so I open up the trunk, and in it, there's this box, and it says fishing waiters. And it's these rubber boot pants, all one thing that you step into, and it protects you up to here. So you can go fly fishing out in the stream and not get, and it's got boots, right? So you got shoes. So he goes, put those on. And they were white. And so I put them on, and I take off my shoes and I just kind of pull the things up and over my shoulders, and I get my little 2 boxes of my equipment, and he walks me in there, and he stands at the door, and it was like a box house. So there was this one room here, a little hallway, and 2 or 3 little bedrooms over there, and another door out. So it's a door in, door out. And so this thing was like the living room and the kitchen and whatever, right? And in it are 3 bodies, and none of the torsos have heads. Only one torso has arms, and one torso has no arms, no legs, no head. But the heads and legs and arms are scattered on the floor. I said, and then there's holes in the roof and the windows and the furniture, and there's 3 shotguns, pump shotguns. And he said, these are 3 brothers. And they got drunk, and I think did some weird drugs, and then got their shotguns and started shooting at each other in this little room. Pretty hard to miss with a shotgun, and in a room that's 10 by 10. And he goes, and that's what we got here. And I said, so I was smart. I said, so what do you want me to do about it? He goes, okay, did you read that forensics books I gave your editor to give to you? I said, not yet. And he goes, okay, this is what we do. So he then he said, you're going to keep this box. And it was a forensic box, right? Forensic tools. I go, okay. And he goes, so we open it up, and there's a stack of metal numbers that are yellow with black numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to like 20. And there's 2 sets of them. So you could have 2, 2 ones, 2 twos, 2, right? Anyway, so he goes, this is what you do. Where the heads are, where the arms are, where the hands are, where this is, where all the main pieces of evidence, you put down the numbers, 1 to 20, right? And then, I'll tell you if I want something different of the same kind of subject matter. We'll take the other ones and put right. Okay, sounds like a plan. So he's helping me do it. He's showing me how to do it. See, you put it this way and do it that way. And I said, fine. So and he goes, so I said, do you want it far away or close up? He goes, no, you've got to be at least, 4 to 5 feet. Can't be any further than 5 feet from that number, because you're shooting, that number 1 is for that arm. So we don't want that arm and the this and the that. Now we will take, So he was smart. He'd been around this enough, so he says, why don't you set your tripod over there and set up your flash over there. And then we're going to take, and this guy kind of knew, he said, we're going to take whatever lights we can focus at whatever part of the ceiling that hasn't been blown away and let the bounce light take these pictures. So you won't, the real close-up ones, you won't use the strobe, but, the far big pictures, we'll use the strobe. This guy, he'd been doing this enough to know what to do. So he taught and showed me how to do it, and I did it, right? And as I walked, I'm wearing this white thing of, and he can walk through this room and not get a drop of blood on him. Me, I'm in there, and the first thing I do is slide on my butt in this rubber suit, and I am just covered in blood, right? And so, anyway, after about an hour, and I'm trying to be, first, I do exactly what he says, and then I'm like being Ouija. I'm like taking these really strange angles, and he goes, "I can't use those." I said, "Yeah, but they're for me. I'm just having fun." And he just, anyway, so we walk out, and he goes, "Stand over there," and he turns on the garden hose, and he hoses me off, right? And he then, out of his box of things, he has this like surgical antiseptic soap. So he goes, "Wash yourself, take your shirt off, and burn that T-shirt." And luckily, he didn't, infect your shoes. And I said they were only flip flops. Anyway, so he has me lather up in this stuff, and then he goes, and I'm just wearing my little shorts. And he goes, "You got any other clothes?" I said, "Yeah, I got my black pants." He said, "Well, go get your black pants." So, we're out in this neighborhood, but it's poor people. It's like trailer trash land. So he goes, "Take all your clothes off, be naked." So we're out there in the middle of no place. I mean, right in front of everybody. And I lather up again, and he hoses me off again, and then I put on my black pants and my white shirt, and a fresh pair of socks, and he goes, "Good. Now you're clean and you're safe." And I said, "Safe?" He said, "Well, these boys, God knows what they got in their blood." so so that was my second day on the job, right? And the fact that I didn't freak out, the fact that I did exactly what he wanted me to do, and the fact that I kept, you know, being interesting, funny, and making him laugh. He goes, "Let's go have some pie." I said, "Pie? Sure." It's like 1 a.m. by now. I said, "What's open?" I'm this town closed up at 9. He goes, "Not everywhere." So he drives me to the Pink Teacup in the black part of the neighborhood. It's big, beautiful restaurant, and there's still people in it. And here's Sarge, and Sarge is kind of there's the chief of police, there's the next guy in charge, but nobody sees them on it. This the Sarge is the man of authority of the city of High Point, right? So, and he's got his finger in everyone's pie. So, uh, Miss Lily and her grandma, what was grandma's? I just called her grandma, but grandma had been running this place for 100 years, and Miss Lily was in her 40s, and she was going to be next in line to be grandma, but she was running it. It was, it was called the Pink Teacup. This totally pink building, very southern, 2 levels, and the top level had big porches. Both had big porches. Been a southern kind of slave big house, but as time went by, the thing got sold and the black people lived there, so it became the black restaurant. Then became the best restaurant in town, and especially from the 20s on. And they had a speakeasy upstairs. So anyway, we go in there and have a piece of pie, best pie I ever had, right? Um, and the 2 ladies come and sit down with us, and we start talking, and so Grandma goes, "So this is a new one. It's the kid." I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "Yeah, this kid, he's a good kid too. He really is good." And then he goes, "These 2 women, you have to treat like goddesses. They're they deserve everyone's respect, because if they didn't want, we wouldn't eat." So I said, "Yes, sir, right away." Yep. "Yes, ma'am." And then I tell him about my grandma, where I grew up, and grandma had been, she knew Zara Austin Fitz, and she had been part of the. There's another black woman she knew from New York. She was part of the Renaissance. Grandma was, right? And she came back from that when you know before you couldn't drink alcohol. And so she came back and she made a lot of money, right? And she realized she went to New York, got the whole New York sensibility, brought it back to High Point, and did this kind of sideways thing where everyone loved her and everyone loved this place. And she would never, ever, 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 you know, no one would ever treat her poorly, right? And Lena, I'm going on this big story about how to deal with morons and jerks, and you started off because you got your Babbo, you got your puppy, right? I've always had a dog. So anyway, I'm there the first night. I'm there with Sarge, and we're eating cake, and she goes, "Well, it's always best to start a meal off with dessert." I said, "That's what my grandma says. You must know my grandma." She goes, "Well, I'm also, making some biscuits up because soon it'll be breakfast time, and I'm making some chicken, for chicken biscuits." I said, "Chicken biscuits?" She goes, "Oh yeah, breakfast chicken biscuits." Okay, so she came and brought us a big plate, like four for both of us, and grits with shrimp, and this was breakfast, right? And I look at it, and I look at Sarge. I said, "Well, that's how Sarge got that way," and she giggles, and he just pats his gut, and we finish off the biscuits, grits, and shrimp. Anyway, then I hear something going on in the kitchen, like cursing like we're gonna have to get rid of all of this. And I go in, and I just get up and walk into the kitchen. I said, Grandma, what's wrong? She goes, "Oh, our walk-ins on the fritz again." And I go, "Well, what's wrong with it?" She goes, "Well, it's an ammonia refrigerant. Do you know what that is?" Oh, I said, "Sure, I do. I used to fix those all the time." You did? I said, "Yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Well, nobody wants to play with it because one little leak of that ammonia and you're in the wrong place, wrong time, you're dead." I said, "Yeah, I know." So you got any tools? And she goes, "Oh yeah, we got some tools." Hey, Bobby, go get the tools, the toolbox. And they bring up this wooden thing, and they got pliers and wrenches, and screwdrivers, a good flashlight. That's all I need. And I said, "You got any kind of tester?" She goes, "Oh yeah, we got one of them." She comes out with a nice Sperry ohm meter, covered in black Bakelite with a big meter. It's got its own light. It's comes in a leather box. I said, "Oh, this is exactly what I need." I said, "Did this thing come with any like little wires with those little clippy?" I said, "You got those?" "Oh yeah." So I kind of check the electrical side of everything. Seems fine. I then go look at the condenser and the chiller, and they look eh. But the one thing that I see that's wrong is the valve between the condenser and the chiller, right? So I said, "You got a blowtorch?" And she goes, "No." I said, "How about hair dryer?" "Oh yeah, got one of them." So she sends somebody to somewhere to get the hair dryer, brings it. It's a really good hair dryer, like 1,500 watts, coming straight up to now. So yeah, this is actually better than you know a blowtorch. So I kind of heat the that little device, and the refrigerator goes right back to working really great. She looked at me. "That's all I got to do." I said, "That's all you got to do." Because every time I have to get a guy from Raleigh to come here 400 miles, and he charges me $400, and I never really watch what he does. Uh, I said, "Well, he's probably either if he's as smart as I am, he's just using a hair dryer. Otherwise, he's come with one of these things and he just changes it out." So anyway, but then when you do that, you got to bleed the lines and this. But this hair dryer, this is something you do. Thing freezes up again. Just get the hair. Leave the hair dryer. I take a nail, ding, 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 hang the hair dryer on the nail right next to where this little valve is, and the plug is right there. And I said, just unplug it. Never leave an appliance plugged in unless you're going to use it. And when it freezes up like that, plug it in. You saw what I did. Just hit it with that, and you'll see that when it's kind of white, it means it's frozen up. So hit it with the hair dryer. As soon as it kind of gets moist, first turn it off, do it with this thing. When it starts to get moist, hit it, and the back pressure will push right through it. Right? So man, she said, "I like you. You know, you're gonna get the special. You get the special treatment, right?" So for the 9 or 10 months that I was there, I never had to pay for any meal I ever had, right? Anyway, so weeks go, a couple weeks go by, and I'm hanging out with the cops because virtually everything I take, because the pictures of like the mayor at this thing, my buddy, my high school, my boss would take those pictures because he would meet, he had a nice suit. He would schmooze with the rich people and find their wives and have sex with them, and that's what got him into real trouble. He couldn't help himself with having sex with other guys' wives or girlfriends. Me, not so much. Wasn't I had my really sweetie. Like I said, I was a monogamous kind of guy, and I had my girlfriend at Duke. The really brilliant rocket scientist, psychologist working for DARPA and the SEAL Corporation. Making paranormal super soldiers, and so every when I'd have a day or two off, I go to Duke and hang at my buddy's fraternity, and I would hang at her. She had her own apartment on campus, but she was a graduate student. That's what I called her. I said, "I'm a grad student. I'm postdoc. I'm pre-doc." And I said, "No, you're just a graduate student." And she would giggle. Anyway, so I wasn't bothering with having to get laid, and because I saw what trouble it got my buddy into, because everyone took everything pretty, personal, and so I just did my job. I hung out with certain people who were loads of fun, like the cops. They had a donut shop, you know, Mr. Donut, right? And or it was like the mix of Kentucky Fried Chicken and a donut shop, because you get either fried chicken or donuts, and they had really good donuts. And this guy would fry anything. And so one time I remember we had a birthday party for Sarge, and I brought all these crazy things to fry. Marshmallows. I found this store that had gigantic marshmallows. So I got gigantic marshmallows and I wrapped them in bacon and threw them in the fryer and they came out, and then I covered them in the best chocolate I could find, chocolate syrup. And then I found this really great, Chambord. It's a liqueur, a raspberry liqueur. So um, I basically fried the marshmallow with bacon, covered it in chocolate, and then stuck it in really hard ice cream and fried that, and then covered that in Chambord. It was like orgasmic, and we had the birthday party for Sarge at the Pink Teacup, and everybody came, all the cops, all the sheriffs, anybody who wore a uniform came to this birthday party, and we had the greatest of times. And they had every kind of everything that you would ever want, and they were cops, so they could do it, and it wouldn't get anybody in trouble. So I got to know every cop, and so I did things like every cop. If their kid was getting married or graduating high school or whatever photographic need they need, I took their pictures for them and did it for free. Just that, how many times I did that? I don't know, 20 times. But in that 9 months, I was like their best friend, their best buddy. I was like I was so different from anybody they knew. The sheriff and the mayor, I was once having breakfast with them. And so what happened? So by the third week, Grandma said, I want to show you something. So she took me upstairs to the old um, speakeasy. That was, they just were storing stuff up there, tables and chairs and this and that. And she goes, "You want to live up here?" I said, "Yeah." Because it had its own back secret entrance, own back secret place to park. No one could see if you were there, and it was really, really plush, really nice. And it had this one room that was like where, whoever was getting it on was there, big, beautiful four-poster bed. And she goes, "I've got a new Sears mattress. New springs, new mattress, really, really made by these people called Sealy Posturepedic. Really bad. I bought one for me, and I got one here because I thought I might want to, you know, use this as my little digs. But no, I want you here because I want you on call 24/7. That hair dryer thing really does work for that, but other things break and you fix them, and I have to wait. But if you live here, I can have you fix them because you fix them so fast. It's not like these other mutton heads, and I have no idea what they're doing. Plus, what I want you to do on the side, this thing was wired in like the 1920s, and it's going to burn down any minute. It needs to be totally rewired, and I want you to do that. And my house out in the back, way, she had her own estate. I got a house and a couple other smaller houses. She bought some slave retreat, and she said, "I want you to redo the whole thing. So you get to live here free, and you do that. And I know how good you're at doing this stuff. It won't take you more than a second. Well, it took me more than a second, but it was fun because I would go out there and she would give me her grand boys who would dig the holes, drill the holes, you know, pull this, pull that, and I would just, because she wanted me to teach them. I want you to teach them how to do the stuff you do. I said, hey, great idea. So I moved in there, and I never made a big deal of it. I never told anybody, but I was living, because I was no longer living at my, those people's house. So, where's that living? So, the I'm having breakfast, and the sheriff's on one side of me, the mayor's on the other side, and mayor says, "I hear you live upstairs," and so that means I'm living in the middle of the black community. White people aren't supposed to live in a black community, right? And I go, "Yeah, right up there," and I go, "It's great. It's beautiful. Did you ever go up there?" He goes, "No, I never seen it. I heard about it. It used to be wasn't it a speakeasy?" I said, "Boy, you should see it. I'll take you up there, right?" So, not while we're having breakfast, but so we're eating breakfast, and the sheriff looks at the mayor. She goes, "Mayor, we'd have to kill Al if there was any more of them." Right? And all the other cops, they all kind of chuckle because they've already. This is now going on almost a month and a half that I've had an experience with every one of these guys. Either shooting somebody who's been run over by a truck, or the shootout we used to call the brothers shootout at the OK Corral, and I could handle almost anything, and then I could talk to them about it, right? So anyway, and I go, yeah, but everybody in this brother eats. You eat 4 times a day in this place, Sheriff. Mayor, you eat here at least twice, and you come here late at night to get away from your wife. So, and wait for your girlfriend. And I started going on about all of that kind of stuff because this was the meet and greet place of everybody, where it was the no tell motel, meaning everyone could go there and have something on the down low, and it would be okay. And so I said, so what's the diff? I live here. I just get to eat breakfast before you do. That's it. And everybody laughed. And that was it. I mean, it could have been a point of contention, but because I was the only owl there was around, everyone laughed and said, you're right. So anyway, we're going on about 2 hours, and it's time for lunch. It's 11:23. It's warmed up enough so I can go back and do some errands and maybe some laundry. And anybody want to say anything else? Let's see what everybody's been saying. Uh, uh, I'll read what everyone said from the beginning. So there's Alan. There's Twitchy. Hey guys. Jane, how you doing, buddy? Piety Pie. Yep. Lena. Oh, I would say the chances of John being yo-yo are probably 90%, and another 10% because because I can't think of any other human being who would be so out to lunch about hating me, you know? And there's a thing called, split personality, right? And now it's called DID. It's I forget what the first D stands for, second, the I. It's your inability to know who you are, basically. And you have all these slices of different characters. So that would make me think John is Yo Yo. Uh, um, but, because John has, the few Gmails that he sent me or messaging he sends me. So you should really look at this guy's channel. He's terrible. He wants, he goes on and on about you. And I haven't looked at it at all because why do I even want to? You know, again, good thoughts in, good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes, right? And John has all he has in his head are really terrible thoughts. He says really terrible words. He gets terrible actions and terrible outcomes. So that he's miserable, right? And I really feel for the guy. I understand. For 3 years I've watched what he's going through, and I've tried my best to be a good example. Tried my best to give him a shoulder to cry on. And still he now wants me to go with him to Texas and negotiate his his wife to come back to him. Well, that's never going to happen, right? And no matter how she tells him it's never going to happen, he won't. Oh no, and he tries. Like the last time he threw me out after only being there 4 hours, was he read me, an hour long bunch of texts um, about why he doesn't understand why she doesn't want to go back with him, and he tried to explain in his own kind of way how it is that it would only make sense, and if she doesn't do it, she's a stupid whore. Um, and I said, well, when you say that, John, why do you think anyone would want to be with you? You know. And so he thinks if I go with him, so he says, I'll offer you money, I'll pay for your things. I said, well, maybe because it gets too cold, you know, I might go there, but but you know, you know. So yes, Yo-Yo could be John, but the other 10% could be somebody's Android bot algorithm just to like screw with Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Alban. And, I have enough shows up here. That's why I keep telling you guys each one of these shows is a shamanic ceremony, right? And, that's why I have the magic rosebud hat, rosebud, 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 you know, and I have the magic nipple, and it's a ceremony, right? So every one of these shows is a shamanic ceremony. Go watch every single one of them. That's why I say go get yourself a dartboard. Throw darts out, get a number of three, 001 would be the first one, 012 would be the 12th one, 102 would be, you get the idea. So that's why a dartboard would be a really, or dice, however you get three numbers. And find your top, I think I'm pushing 1,000. Find your top 10 to 100 and put it on a thumb drive or DVD or your hard drive. And because the more this is kept somewhere that isn't in, YouTube's cloud or Google's cloud, the better this will be. So I just wanted to tell you I love you. And what else did you guys have to say? Research probably is already gone. It's obvious, John. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Yep, yep. Like I said, 90% is probably John. 10% somebody else, something else, not someone. You know. And the fact that he has been going through my stuff and taking things out and making shows about it like he's Indiana Jones, and reads personal letters from a great grandfather and puts it in a context where it's about him and doesn't care. I kind of texted, John, you don't do that anymore. Please take that down, John. Have some respect, John. And the fact that he can't have any respect means he has no respect for himself. And that's why he can torment himself. Anyone who's really miserable, if they have respect for themselves, they go, "Wow, I'm miserable. I got to do something about this." Me, you know. And I've been thrown out of the school by John so often that it would be nice, like the last time he did it, it was 10 o'clock at night. I couldn't see anything. I had to drive down the dark driveway that's just a riverbed. Luckily, I've been on that riverbed for 15 years, so I know every little pebble. But it was still, I mean, there's a cliff right on the side. To get too close, woo, and he didn't care. Then I got out on the paved road, and it's a very windy, and again, cliff on this side, no, woo, right? And then when I got out on the county road, it's really dark and big bright lights, and then I can't see anything. When it's totally dark, I can kind of see, but when I get flashed, and then I had no place to stay. He gave me a few dollars, get a motel room. Well, he gave me a tenth of what a motel room would cost. A nice motel room at the Holiday Inn is almost $200. A crappy motel room at the Eight Ball Hotel is like $80. Then there's a prostitute, drug addict kind of places that are about $60. Well, he didn't even give me that. And when I went to the two of those, I knew they've been closed down by the city and going to be torn down and something like a strip mall put in its place. So because Roanoke's being totally gentrified, so I drove to a cul-de-sac I knew that there was nothing on, and the cops wouldn't go down it. And I know most of those cops, that count, the sheriffs. And so it was a place I could sleep. So I called everyone I knew saying, "Hey, can I come to your house and sleep on your couch?" Everybody was out and about and nobody answered the phone. And so I kind of got myself comfy in my car and I was listening to the radio and the phone rang. And this friend of mine, "Oh, I just got your phone message. At a party and it's really off the hook. And where are you?" And I told him where it was. He goes, "I'll come and get you because you'll never find this place." So he took me to this party, or she took me to this party, and it was a party that lasted 3 days. And it was the best off the hook party I had been to, you know, in a long time. And so if John hadn't thrown me out, I would have never gone to that party. I met so many new friends. I had a great, they had a band, they had a number of bands, and they had everything, food, drink, libations, any party thing that you wanted. And it was out in the middle of the woods, nowhere. So, and they had a gigantic big wedding tent. It was straight off the hook from my book. And so these are the kind of parties I like. And I would have never been to that party if John hadn't thrown me out of the school. And he did it with such vile, the kind of negativity that you're talking about, man. And when I said, "John, can't you wait till the morning? It's 10 o'clock at night. Just go back to sleep." You woke me up. I was asleep. I wanted to take some stuff out of here because you're complaining that stuff's in your house. It's costing you money. And so I said, you know, so I went and grabbed a few boxes of stuff here and there, and I said, "Here, John, take it out to the car." He wouldn't even. Now I can't get around. My legs are mush. I'm an old guy. He's been working out with weights, and he wouldn't carry anything. He just had, "Get out, get out. You have to get out now." I said, "I just have to move a few of them. Get out now." I said, "John, can't we wait till the morning so it's sunny? I can see." "No, get out now. Out now. Out now." Meaning, you're right, Lana. There is this really almost satanic, reptilian, negative motif in John's brain. And that's because that's the only thoughts he's got up there. That's what causes it. "You're making me feel so anxious." I said, "John, I've only been here 4 hours. I bought you a case of beer with my last $15. And he threw a couple of 20s at me. He goes, "It's costing me so much money. You know. And he had just bought himself a nice big 90-inch flat screen. And he already bought four others. He got there one that was 36 inches, and then he bought a 40, a 60, and he had to have a 90. And because he thinks if he's going to get another thing of that, fascist sensibility, he'll be happy. You know. Anyway, so is John yo-yo? 90% probably, right? And what's really sad is when you go look at his videos, like I said, so he had nothing to say, so he rifled through my stuff and found some of the most personal things he could find, and he made a story up like he's Indiana Jones, right? And then the people said, "Oh, this is so cool, this is so great." There's this, you know, there was Yo-Yo who said it was so cool and great. There was um, the I don't even like to. She calls herself the nerdy vagina. What woman would call herself a nerdy vagina? Anyway, she comments how much like a saint he is because he found a couple of bugs in there, and he kind of threw some crumbs from a cracker in there. You're so considerate. Well, so considerate of, and what was interesting of those bugs? He found this box, and it was a Sacramento box. So it had pictures of my great grandparents, a letter from my great grandfather to my great grandmother, and in the hard times of the 1920s. And I had some of this really ancient first plastic jewelry that Madame Olga Kluver gave me. And then I had some of my mother's rosary beads. She used to make rosary beads to send off to the little poor Christians in Africa. She must have made 1 million pair of rosary beads over the years. And I had put in 2 Egyptian scarab brooches, right? That were ceremonially brooches that were given to me by the woman who ran the Theosophical Society. So all of that stuff had some pretty heavy shamanic, spiritual, parapsychologic oomph. And the way he mistreated it and had no respect for it, and then fed crumbs to the scarabs. And the fact that he's living on one of the most um, energetic hills in this part of America, and that's John. He seems to be able to do this to himself, make himself off the hook miserable, you know. Again, what did I say in my little, what I'm reading to you from my writings? What makes you happy. And the only times when we got along was when he would like go off and he'd buy himself 10 pairs of socks and give me one. Right? Here, have some socks. I said, "Oh, gee, thanks, John. Thanks a lot." But they were like, of a material I couldn't wear. He got them because they were, those little shorts he bought where his junk kind of hangs out, the really tight ones. They look like hot pants. Well, he gave me a pair of his that he hadn't even washed. He said, "Here, you can have these." And I just looked at them, and it was like my junk wouldn't even fit in that. So I said, "John, thanks a lot. I'll keep that." "Yeah, okay." And I just kind of put it in a plastic bag and kind of put it off in the corner. And so, and this is what I'm talking about. We're at this window of opportunity where stuff can truly be very strange happening. Yeah. Yes, the one with the contract, right? I love that one because he's broken everything that we contracted to do. So part of that contract was never to throw me out, especially never to throw me out like where I only had 10 minutes to get out before he was going to go nuts. Well, channel, if you're still there, I love you, and if you've gone on your day, I still love you. Well, he's got split personality. And what's it called? Dissociative individual disorder. I think it's DID. You can go look that one up. DID. Now let's see what Google has to say. It's 11:39, and I was talking. I named this one. You know, grow yourself an ovary, right? Because women are so much more powerful than guys. Doesn't that look way more impressive than someone's testicles? Yes. I remember when I was a little kid, I found one of like invisible woman right in a garbage, right, and or you could pull all organs out, and there was another one, invisible woman, reproductive organs. So it's uterus and ovaries were basically natural size. So I brought these things home, had them on my little desk, and I was taking them apart. My mom came up and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, I think it's called anatomy because that's what it said on the box. And she looked at the box. You could read that word. I thought you couldn't read. I said, "Oh, I can read. I just don't read out loud because Sister Holy Roller Skate pisses her off." Anyway, let's see. What is DID disorder?
According to Mayo Clinic, a disorder characterized by the presence of two or more distinct personality states.
You hear that? A disorder by, let's see, and what do they call it? It's dissociative identity disorder. And that ain't John Birmingham. I don't know it. Dissociative identity disorder. A disorder characterized by the presence of two or more different personality states. Dissociative identity disorder, previously called multiple personality disorder, is usually a reaction to a trauma. Now, you don't look at John Birmingham and think that boy is traumatized and has PTSD. As we, let's see, trauma as a way to help a person to avoid bad memories. So the only way you can deal with bad memories is to face them, right? Right. And what a grown up or a parent is supposed to do is basically not put you in a place of trauma. But because we live in a sociopathic world, it's kind of hard not to do that. So I'm going to put in my order for just a second. I'll be right back. Oh, since we're still all here, let's see. Uh, Remember Atlanta, fracking and shite. Beer to last you all night. I'm such a cheap date. One drink is all I usually have on the outing. Oh, thank you, darling. Ooh. Chicken and dumplings. Woo-wee. Peas and carrots. My favorite. Mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. So there's a guy, I forget it, there's a radio show in my neighborhood, about 60 miles from here, Johnson City. That's a college, the flagship of Tennessee, called Eastern Tennessee State University, ETSU. And they have a radio station, public radio. And it's really good. And they have some really good shows. Voice of the Appalachian, very good show. It tells all the stories of the Appalachian, right? And they have a show called The Splendid Kitchen, which is another great show because it focuses on food. It's like anthropology in food. It focuses on food of the South and the North, black, white, German, and not only that, it kind of goes on about how to do it, how to make that, how to, you know, and so um, they also have a really great show that comes out of Denver, I think, called Alternative Radio, which is really, really, really good. Have a good day, man. Yep, just a little bit cold.
So you live up.
I live over off of 321 near Elks Mills. If you go way in the back, way on top.
Well, you know where that subdivision is. You go up.
You mean Banjo Ridge?
No, Heartland.
Well, I'm kind of between that and 320, but at the highest point.
Oh my!
Yeah.
I have to look up there. So you live not Pogo.
Right. That's right.
The other road.
Right. So
There's Peak Branch.
Right.
That's one goes up, and you live on the one that goes to the left.
right. And so
What's that?
I've been there.
That's Pogo Road.
Right.
Pogo,
I've been up there. Hoagie.
Hoagie Road.
Right. So I've been up there 20 years, but I would just come here when it was nice. And I had a place in Florida and a place here and a place there. Then I got really sick. Doctors took all my money, So I'm basically a homeless guy.
Oh.
I'm an itinerant scholar.
Oh my! But you live in a nice place.
Oh, very nice place. But it gets a little cold. It was a little nippy. I'm glad I had my electric blanket last night. I'll be safe as long as the electricity don't go out. Other than that, you'll find me in the spring being eaten by squirrels. That's why I like this place, because every kind of people here, everybody knows you. And no matter how I treat everyone, I don't care what they believe in, just like them. And over the years, that sensibility has seeped into this whole place. But if you go back and watch this early part of there's one guy was going on about, those Democrats, blah, blah, blah. And I went right along. But I took him all the way around. He basically said, you just gave me a whole bunch of things to think about. That's what I do. Yeah, I know. That's what I like to do. Just like the sheriff and the mayor of North Carolina said in 1966. We really like you, but if there were more of you, we'd have to kill you. So, and that's what we all need to be as ourselves, The unreflected life is a life not worth living. Well, that's the motif. This is good. And so the guy who bought this place, he didn't change much about it. And then didn't get rid of his two cooks and his baker. And he just gave them, do what you want. So that was a smart guy. So, that's good. Elena, what time does because I used to live in Sweden, and in the summertime the sun never went down, and in the wintertime the sun never came up. I mean, it kind of got a little gray at around 12 to around 2 in the afternoon, but other than Maine and Vermont, Sweden was the best place I ever saw the northern lights. You get a really teeny little town way up north in Sweden called Portugal, which is kind of right between Gutenberg and Stockholm. And I really, really liked Gutenberg. That was a fun town. And Stockholm was okay too. Well, capital town, a little full of itself, at least when I was there. Yep, all the religious foods, except, not Mohammed. Mohammed came from a very rich family. And that's how Islam got started, because the city that he was from, he went out into the desert, had 40 days, 40 nights, came back and had his vision, and said, oh, this is what we should do. Then he basically, and Islam is based on hospitality, sharing. So he basically paid everyone's bills. And once his parents got a little tired of that, I mean, at one point they thought, hey, well, this is great, and things were really, really reduced. But then they got tired of paying the bills, so they gave him the bum's rush. And then he got kind of surrounded by guys who saw the opportunity of turning it into a business plan of ripping people off. And kind of went along with it, but they didn't know how he was going to pay his bills. No. But why Islam is still Islam today, and they don't really talk about this much in Western studies of religion, is that Muhammad's grandchildren, granddaughter and grandson, were amazing. And the biggest existential threat to Islam was the Persians, right? Persian Empire. And the Persian Empire had drawn into the neck of the woods where Islam was germinating. And, but, a lot of money, a big army, was killing all Muslims. And the grandson and the granddaughter walked into the great Bahai's tent or camp with no army, just them, no weapons, just them, and walked straight up to this dude and said, hey, could you do this? Do you have the powers of your conviction, or do you need all these guys with swords and spears and arrows and bows to back me up? No. It so affected that guy. He tortured them, beat them, And these guys didn't scream or yell. They just kept telling him of the good news of Islam. And so you should go read that story, because that is the best part of what Islam's about. And when you talk about Sharia law is a metaphor. And so, in the Jewish scripture. It's a story about this woman who, her and this other woman, they wanted this child. And so they went to the king, wanted him to decide who gets the kid. He said, well, we're going to cut the kid in half. You get one half, you get the other half. That's how it is. What? You can't do that. You'll kill the kid. He said, yeah, but that's the way it's going to be. I'm the king. That's the way it's going to be. So the woman who most loved the child said, okay, I love the child. I don't want you to come and give me half of them. Go ahead, let her take it. And the other woman, oh yeah, I got the kid. I got the kid. So that's when the king said, okay, go to the other woman. So in Sharia law, why people get their hands cut off and stuff like that. What happens is, so I'm a baker, you're a starving guy. You steal a loaf of bread from me. Sharia law, me, get one hand cut off. You go to a guy in the Sharia law, the judge, and he will say to the, okay, fine, I'll take that guy's hand. Hey, why did you steal from? Oh, my children are starving. Okay, you lose your hand. And then he turns to the baker and says, okay, you lose both your hands. The baker goes, what? And he goes, well, Islam, this religion's based on hospitality and taking care of your brother and sister. And since you wouldn't even give him a loaf of bread, you lose two hands. He loses one, you lose two. My things are more important than just the irrelevant belief in a book. How you read your life. Boy, this was yummy. Glad I got that. Okay, let's see.
Right. All right.
There are a lot more idiots than 20 million. But at one time or another, we're all idiots. So that's how it works out. That's why you should be a little forgiving to the other guy. That other guy would be you. Boop, boop, boop. Well, a lot of love going on here. Yep, Fish, hope you're well. No smoke without fire. Again, the people who are happy by watching others' misery, they aren't even human beings. There's a big difference between a human being and Homo sapiens sapien. And so, what is victory? Well, okay, gang. Almost 2.5 hours. Mm-mm-mm. Breakfast, now lunch. It's all good. Mm. Mm. Remember, go check me out on Griot Publishing or xratted.blogspot.com. Go leave something in my PayPal at my thedudeawake42 at Gmail. Mm-hmm. Go back, get yourself a dartboard, go back and look at my other past shows. Save whatever ones you like. Mm-hmm. And bless everyone. Let everyone be happy by making others happy. Enjoy the day. Mm. Another minute or so, I'm going to end this show. Now, remember, go out there and grow yourself some ovaries.
Oh, you're looking for dessert.
Mm. Enjoy your walk with your dog, Lana, and everybody else. Twitchy, Chris, the other five. Some more thumbs up. Coach, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell. Get other people to sign up. It'd be nice to get some more folks. And if anyone wants me to come and visit, send me a message on the Dude Awake 42 Gmail. My Gmail. This is very yummy.
Got it, got it.
Oh yeah, that's good. Okay. Catch you guys later. Here we go. Up to
Better remember what it was.
another few seconds. What are you saying, Lena? And those folks who are so miserable, we have to have empathy for them. Right? We don't have to put ourselves in harm's way to them. Well, we don't have to despise them. We don't have to feel ill of them. But they're feeling ill about themselves enough. You know, to do anything. That's why, bullies never bothered me because, A, I never noticed them. I got a big dog. And but I did kind of go, look at that. I would these people were making themselves miserable. No, I didn't have to. Okay. Okay, here we are. 23333. I love you guys. See you later. Fracking. Remember, ain't a fracking. So say we all. I love you. So say we all.